I would love to see a day when we globally acknowledge pistols as a defensive system. Um, yeah, that's all I got. I would love to see IDPA, a version of IDPA in the Olympics. I think that would be really cool as well. I think IDPA, or just the shooting sport in general, I think is very dynamic, and it aids itself very well to technology. Maybe having different camera angles and like, I do. I just, not only because I watch, but I also competed. Not only am I the Hair Club president, I'm also a client. No, I'm just kidding, guys. Look, I appreciate my hair. I'm not losing hair, which is fine, which I'm grateful for. Someone's like, "Well, you shaved." Yes, I shaved my head religiously. That was my religion, my shaved head religion. No, I'm just messing around now. I like to say, I had a good friend of mine. He called his religion Sevism, and he incorporated all religions. I think artificial intelligence is getting to that point. I was thinking of going by Seth, because I used to go by Joe, and now I'm like, well, what about Seth? So, hello, I'd like to introduce myself as Seth today. I mean, that is part of my name. It's the second half. I used to go by the first half. I got this from Sasha. Shout out to Sasha. The red flags. If you want somebody to tell you when and where you should throw a red flag. No, it's just someone I follow on Instagram. This is what I realized. Look, I think it's kind of cool that everyone kind of like follows different things. I think everything has become desensitized, decentralized. There, I think that's the better word. Decentralized when it comes to celebrityism. Okay, thank you. And my point of that is Bill Wilson. He's like a celebrity to me. He is. I've been involved in the shooting sport sport industry for, I would say, 20 plus years. Since my first gun. Well, really, since my parents, my mother and father. They may have argued a lot, but when we would be at the range, no one would be arguing. It was always a great time when I look back at all the times that my parents and I went to the shooting range. So thank you to my parents for instilling marksmanship, discipline, just all the things that I wasn't the best. And this goes into, but I would take extra steps. And my preferred way of carry is with a safety and a hammer. So the gun itself is only single action. The pulling of the trigger, the pulling of the trigger cannot bring the hammer back. So it's going to drop the hammer. So look, now that I'm a parent too, I've been just considering other methods of carry. I think that empty chamber with the hammer back and the safety on, the gun now is locked on an empty chamber. And then having a loaded mag with the gun. So that way, if for whatever reason, no, I'm just saying now I'd have to incorporate that into my training. I'm not doing that, but I'm just saying that's something that I've been thinking about. I'm like, well, what if I carried that way? What would have to be different about how I deploy my defensive tactics? And that's why I think there is a real reason in my mind for, IDPA internationally defending with pistols and having an association, a similar version of that in the Olympics. Okay, so I did water test this.
Can I take a bath because I got these hands?
Yes, let me come in there and I'll turn the water on for you, okay? But I've been water testing my gun. I'm like, well, what about places where it rains and stuff? I mean, your gun does have to be like somewhat like water resistant. So that was the one thing I was testing. I'm just maybe I just do things in a silly way, So this is what I would consider my go-to-war gun, because I'm not in the military. Maybe, who knows, maybe I will be one day, but just saying currently I'm not in the military, nor have I been. But I can imagine if what I want to carry. Well, I guess the gun that I shot competitively, or was the end result of all my years, my time shooting. That's why I enjoyed being part of the industry, and I paid for it with my. No, I'm just saying I was never sponsored. I was never part of a team. I think that would have been cool, but all I'm saying is this was my end result. This was the end all be all, guys. No, I'm just messing around. But no, this is where I came to my conclusion. After shooting 45 ACP competitively for 10 years, I realized, I'm like, look, it takes a toll on your hands. That's just me. It takes a toll on your hands. That's just my opinion. And I would always move. If I wasn't actively gonna shoot or engage a target, my safety was on. That was just me. That's how I carried. So one time I did get disqualified. I fell. The gun, I never dropped the gun, but the gun did touch the ground. So my arm went down and the gun touched the ground, and I was disqualified. I remember I told him, I said, I never dropped the gun. And he's like, well, but the gun touched the ground. And I was like, okay, well, I fell. I slipped and I fell. So, but I think the rule, in my opinion, the spirit of the rule is like, if you release the gun out of your hand, because obviously from falling, I tried my best to like elevate the gun, but my whole body fell down. So the gun fell and hit and touched the ground. So like, you have those rules. Look, I'm first and foremost, I will admit I have been disqualified from a major match. Okay. And I'm okay with that. So thank you guys. No, I really do. I know there's a version 2. Me personally, I would just buy, like, I'm just pretending if I won the lottery. I'm saying I would snatch up all the version 1s because I don't mind it. I get what people are saying. I know. Shout out to Austin and your father, Walt. I've had the pleasure of shooting with those two gentlemen, and I see what they're saying. I've kind of like can be around someone enough to kind of understand what their point is. But me personally, I kind of like I gravitated to this grip. I understand what he's saying. I don't think there will ever be a better grip than a single stack 1911 grip or a 2011. Okay, I'll give you that. Sorry, 2011. Just the ergonomics, the way. But this is so nice. I just love it too. So, me personally, I'm down for this. I ordered some parts. I have another extractor just because parts that I think potentially could break after someone who's I fired a few 100,000 rounds through 1911s. So I got an extractor, a firing pin. I probably should get some more mainsprings, probably all just the springs. Really, I like to keep those running good. But other than that, this fiber optics I feel is more for like range use. I'm going to a gold bead. That I think is the way. So thank you guys. I love this journey on just competitive shooting, and sometimes I got to shoot a lot. Sometimes I didn't shoot a lot, but I always kept the dream alive. And I think that's what Wilson Combat was and has been for me. This dream of what I can aspire to be a version of within the industry for myself. Thank you guys. I love you. Have a blessed day. Look, this is it, guys. This is my pick for Game of the Year 2026. I need to try out the version 2. Shout out to Bill Wilson. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.